Welcome to Becoming Parents podcast. I'm Jen Taylor, your host. I am mom of 18, and you can find me on momsrunningit.com. Remember, give a shout out to those who are brave enough to share their stories with us on how they have become parents. Let's dive right in. I am so excited today. I'm with Eddie and Colleen Thomason. How are you two today?
We're good.
Incredible. Happy to be here.
I'm really excited about this because I hadn't met Colleen before, but Eddie, you were on the podcast in the past under at a crossroads with the naked podcaster. And I
Mhm.
have that link. I have all the links. All the links are in the description.
Yep.
We talked a lot about your childhood on that one, and I just want to sort of briefly go over that because you guys are talking about how to work together parenting your kids, which is astounding. And you came up from a really rough neighborhood in Baltimore with a mom that had disability. $13,000 is what she raised you on a year. A
Mhm.
year.
Yep.
And you were like, become an athlete, become a rapper, or sell drugs. And you went the athlete route, which was smart,
Yep.
but you fell short of NFL.
Yep.
And you were also the first student in your high school to earn a D1 scholarship, and it allowed you to
Yep.
become the first man in your family to graduate from college. And I want to talk about that because now we're discussing you guys parents. So Colleen, can you kind of bridge the gap on your upbringing? And then we
Of
can
course.
dive right in.
Yes. All right. So I grew up in New York, about an hour and a half northwest of New York City. I had both my mom and my dad in the house. I have an older sister and a younger sister. Thing that Eddie and I always connected on was sports. I grew up as an athlete as well. My dream was never to go professionally, but I had the basis of my mom was a very hardworking nurse, and my dad was a New York City fireman.
Oh,
Um, my dad, interestingly enough, his story is more similar to Eddie's.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's kind of helped us in the way we view life in a lot of ways. My
Mhm.
dad was the only white kid growing up in the projects in his area.
mm,
Yep.
So they used to call him Blue because of his blue eyes, and his hair was the minority, right? Like as far as texture and stuff. So little kids, they'd always be like, oh, touching his hair, and not that it's okay either way, but a lot of that's kind of shaped how my parents raised me. But I did have, both parents in the home, and I never really knew until I was probably about 22 years old in grad school where we were financially. It
right.
was just not discussed, and it was not um, really evident. I would have thought we were, okay middle class. My parents kind of explained to me, they're like, no, I was doing a project in grad school about socioeconomic status, race, disability, gender, those topics, and I had to ask my parents because I had no idea. We were lower middle class, so we were doing okay, um, but my parents had to work really hard, so that's my base.
Yep.
And then tell me how you guys met and like let's get up to speed. Get me up to speed from you guys meeting to having kids.
Yeah. So
A very short time.
yeah, it's a very, very short time frame there. But basically we met on Tinder, right? Of all places.
All
Met
right.
on the
Okay.
good old Tinder space.
Tinder success story.
Exactly. Now, definitely would say we were both on Tinder for the wrong reasons when we first met. But however, um, long story short, I'll say it this way, and you can go into details if you want. But I say it this way: she denied me like 3 times. I was like, "Hey, we should get together. We should have some food, get some dinner," and she was basically like, "Nah, swerve, you ugly." And so from there, we stayed in touch, right? So we stayed in touch. When I moved to New York, it was October of 2015, and when we probably matched on Tinder like November-ish time. Around that time, we didn't have our first date until July of 2016.
Wow.
So although we matched on there, we both had like life happening, some things going on. She was in some situationships. I actually ended up getting into a relationship with that obviously did not work out for all the best reasons because now I'm married to the love of my life. But
No offense to that girl.
but all those things happened basically, and we met. That first date was on July 16th. I'm sorry, July 18th, right?
Yes,
Yeah, July
July
18th, because the 16th is her birthday. So our first date was on July 18th. I proposed in February 20 something. I don't remember the
So
exact
our
date.
first day was July 18th, 2016. We
Yep.
got engaged in February. We got married in
29 of
September
2017.
17. We got married in September of 2017.
So you guys
And
knew
Declan-
had been dating for 14 months when you got married. I mean, that's pretty good. That's not
Yeah,
bad.
we had been we got engaged about 6.5 months into dating, and then got married about 6.5 months later.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And then had kids.
So
well, you
yeah. To rewind back, I had never been in a relationship before, so that it was all new for me. So I didn't deny him because I thought it was ugly. That was like totally not true. I'd never been in a relationship before at all. He was my first relationship. So after we got married in September 2017, we got pregnant November. Ended up having a miscarriage in December. And then got pregnant again in like the spring, and then had our first son March of 2019, and then got pregnant when he was 4 months old.
Oh my gosh.
I was pregnant 3 times in 3 years, basically, but then had our second son in March of the next year. So
they're a year apart. And Eddie, I interviewed you when the baby was a baby.
Yeah.
The youngest one was a newborn and in the room with you now that I'm like, wow, now it's all coming back.
Yeah.
So how
was
long ago was
sleeping.
that? Was that 2 years? Yeah, he was sleeping. I remember.
They just turned 3 and 2.
Yep, it was 2 years ago.
Okay, so it was 2 years ago. Wow, time flies. So the miscarriage right away. I mean, there's not an easy miscarriage, right? That's pretty. It's physically difficult. Some more than others. Like I've had 3, and one was really physically difficult. The other 2 really weren't. It was like a really bad period. Emotionally, they're a little difficult. They can be. So. How nervous were you getting pregnant? And it was about 6 months later that you got pregnant the second time, right?
Yeah.
Am I doing
Between
math?
like around 5 or 6
Okay.
months. Yeah. So ask your question again. I'm sorry. I was focused on the number.
How nervous were you getting pregnant the second time? And then tell me about getting pregnant when that baby was 4 months old. Like, because that's a different emotion. You have the miscarriage emotion, and then you have the holy crap emotion, right?
Yes. So I would definitely say I was nervous. I was very back and forth, probably annoying to Eddie. But because in this place, I was like, I didn't want to get pregnant right away and have it mentally feel, even though I know it wasn't my intention, have this kind of like feeling in the back of my mind, like, am I trying to replace the baby we just lost?
Right.
But then at the same time, I wanted to have another baby, right? So, it was very hard, and I remember, and I won't go too deep into this. There were multiple times where like we were being about to be intimate, and I was like got very emotional because I was scared. But that hey, I don't want to get pregnant, and I don't know if that's too much for the show, but I was like, hey, I don't want to get pregnant, or maybe I do. Like it was, I cried. Like, I don't know if you remember that, but because it was like very just back and forth. So sometimes I was like, okay, I think I'm ready. And other times like to plan out having a child. And then I was like, no, I don't think I'm, and it was like every other day. Yeah. And then as far as when we got pregnant, when our youngest was 4 months, I was excited because I knew at that point, like, I just knew we could handle anything together. And I know it sounds so cliche, and I know people say that and later, get divorced. People say they stay together, but we've just made the commitment that we're going to get through everything, no matter what it is. And so I knew this baby was a good thing. It was a positive thing. Like, and I knew we could kind of handle the situation.
Absolutely. I think that's a great attitude to have going into any marriage, regardless of the situation. And especially once you've gone through something tough together. I mean, it can divide you or unite you. And when it unites you, you realize like, wow, hard stuff's really hard, and united, like, two's better than one. It's like a marriage superpower. So I love that you brought that up. I love all of the backstory. Now let's jump into the stuff that we were planning on talking to today. And I'll go over the bullet points that you shared. What do you do when you disagree? Fostering togetherness in your home, financial structure, joint ventures and goals, calendar and daily commitment. And jump in, and I have it written so I can remind you of anything. I'm not worried about getting off track, but so let's jump in, because now you have a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old. You've been together for several years. You
Mhm.
decided you were going to be a united front and tackle everything. And then what?
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's funny because obviously we all know marriage is hard, right?
Mhm.
But it's a good hard, right? It's I think a lot of times in general, you know, even with some of the different couples that we mentor and people that we chat with, like, you know, there's no real sense of the commitment that happens before like all the bad stuff happens, right? So I think one thing that me and Colleen did really well from the very beginning, and because we had great examples and great mentors in our life, is the fact that when we decided that, hey, yes, this is who I want to be with you for the rest of our life, we made that commitment. And like, you know, the D word is never really talked about in our house, right? Or like
Right.
the things that come up that typically would shatter, right, a marriage. When you think about miscarriages and you think about very tough financial situations, right, different things that can happen inside of a marriage that for a lot of people it shatters the marriage, is because I personally think it's like the commitment was not made way early on prior to that big event happening, right? It's like you kind of always had the 1 foot in, 1 foot out, but that's never been our case. I felt like for us, we've always were like, hey, we're going to make sure that that commitment is there first and foremost.
And I think it's because of the way we started our relationship too.
Yeah.
Because this is not to, and again, if I'm diving too far into anything, let me know.
You can't possibly dive too far. So
So, and I think, like I said, I think it's the way we start our relationship too. And this is not a judgment statement in any way, shape, or form. Let me preface it with that. We waited to be physically intimate until marriage.
I love that
hadn't-
you brought that up.
Yeah. So, okay. So that I'm glad it's not too much. I hadn't been physically intimate with anybody prior to getting married to Eddie. Eddie had, but we made a commitment in our relationship, and I think because there wasn't obviously like physical intimacy, and that tension is very strong, and I think because our initial interactions didn't have that, there was a lot of other connections that had to be built first. Because we made that commitment, it was like we had to build those other emotional and mental and just like different connections, establish those commitments before any of the other stuff happened. And it's not to say relationships where you're sex before marriage, right, can't be successful, because there are plenty of relationships where are very successful. But I just think for our situation, that helped us, and the results are kind of showing today.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because you're totally willing to open up this can of worms, I'm going to ask you, one, how difficult was it to wait? Colleen, did you have any issue or baggage with Eddie's past sexual experiences? And what was it like? Like, what you saved virginity until marriage, which was what I wanted to do growing up. Like, I have the utmost respect, because that's a really, really difficult thing to do. Sex feels good. People want it. It's easy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, I'd love to take a deeper dive on that for a minute.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Don't be sorry.
So I feel like sounds weird, but for me, I don't think it was super hard. I didn't have a lot of male interactions in a romantic way growing up, really whatsoever. I was the athletic girl that was a little bit bigger. There was not many guys attracted to me, so it was never like I had to fight off guys, and definitely affected my belief in myself. And I think that kind of was just kind of a whole nother segue of different things. But I for me, honestly, it wasn't that hard until I would say I got to grad school, college, undergrad, and then graduate school, where there was a little more attention, not much, but a little more attention with guys. And I just did my best to not put myself in situations, but like I never really was in a situation where I had to make that decision, if that makes sense. Like I never got to that point with somebody.
So you just kept yourself protected and safe. You removed the threat for the most part of having to
stay busy.
Yeah. Other stuff.
I mean, it's different for everyone, I mean, a lot of it was this a religious decision?
Growing up, so I was raised Catholic, and then in college, of all places, I decided to accept Christ, and I consider myself a non-denominational Christian.
Right.
At this point. And growing up, my parents always were just like, they didn't hone it, and they weren't like every day, like no sex before marriage. But when it
Right.
came up, it was like, hey, like you wait till, there was never really a sex talk. But what was known and kind of understood is like, hey, like you wait, you should wait till marriage. But it was never like, bashing you over the head with kind of that idea.
Got it.
So I just kind of had that basis. And then when I was in college, I just kind of had that kind of core value and core belief. And then it became more of I kind of understood the spiritual reasoning of why somebody would make that decision, as well as the emotional, because I knew if I'm an extremely emotional individual. And I knew if I had that experience with somebody, it would just destroy my emotions. So it was for, faith-based reasons, but also just my mental and emotional health reasons.
Yeah, I get it. I love this conversation. I think it's fantastic. Eddie, what was this like for you?
So, we left out so many different portions of our story of actually, how we met and all that, how it all came together. But I think it's actually a really cool redemption story in itself, because I was actually at a leadership conference back in July of 2016, and on a Sunday morning they had a non-denominational optional worship service, and I ended up going to this worship service, and I said, just being a part of the weekend in itself, hearing from different, like the hearts of the leaders that I was learning from, and I made a decision to accept Christ at that conference. And then from there, met Colleen. Well, not met her, but
our first date
was the next day, right?
So okay. I think we talked about this on our first interview. It's been 2 years. I think we touched on. Okay. So that, it was a common thread in my marriage too. And here's the interesting thing: even when you consider yourself a Christian, we weren't we did have sex. We didn't do Christian. We didn't do what we were supposed to do from a Christian standpoint at all. And I don't think we were 1 foot out the door necessarily. However, when things got hard 3 years into our relationship, we had to make a serious decision how many feet were in or out the door. Right. And that's when all of this kind of came up more. We were like, wait a minute. So if you look at both of our values and you back up, you take a step back, bird's eye view, we aren't doing what we should be doing. And why aren't, because it's easy, right? But it definitely, so we came at it totally from the backwards point of view from you guys. All right. So Colleen, he was new. Like, did you believe him? And I don't mean that in a bad way, like Eddie's a liar, but he's brand new to this. This is all new territory for you guys.
Yep. And I had not a formal background, but my mom basically listened to TD Jake, Joel Osteen, Joyce Meyer, stuff like that on TV. So I always like to say the seeds were planted. I just wasn't watering the crops. Right. I just wasn't 100% aware from that perspective. So, but when we made that decision, and again, a lot of this is because of a great relationship and friendship that we have with a couple by the name of Evan and Rachel Grubb, who are our mentors in our life. But we saw the foundation that they laid as their marriage. And we kind of we looked at them as all right, well, we can model, not to say they're perfect, right? We didn't put them on a pedestal, but we can model our relationship and our commitment based off of what they've been able to accomplish. Because for us, well, at least for me, Colleen had a great example in her mom and dad, fighting through marriage and having that great example in her life. For me, I did not. I didn't have any positive examples of what marriage looks like other than that couple, right? And not only did they have a powerful marriage, they had an incredible business, right? They grew a business together as a couple. They also raised, at the time, it was 3 incredible kids. They just added a 4th. So they had so much more fruit on the tree. And I was like, man, okay, if you guys have more of this complete package, I'm more than willing to make this commitment to say hey, I will hold off on any of the physical temptations and things like that. In order for our marriage to have this strong foundation, it's so connection.
Good. That's so good. Yep. So I swear we're going to get into the questions. What?
No, you're good.
So now I'm so glad we talked about the foundation. I mean, Christianity is the foundation of your relationship in large part. And that's super, super important. It is in mine too. And you're right. There's lots of successful people who aren't Christians, but
Mhm.
man, it's got a lot of answers and a lot of help and a lot of it makes it much easier for us. So, what do you do when you disagree?
It's a great question.
We're working on it.
That's a never.
It's not a one and done magic wand.
Oh
It's
no,
not a
not at all.
destination, it's a journey.
Some disagreements are like easier to bounce back from than other disagreements, right? But like we both have like our own internal things. Like me, anytime I get worked up or frustrated, typically like if it was an immediate reaction, I'm gonna explode. That's just like my personality. Like my voice gets higher. I'm yelling for no reason. Everything is agitating and like irritable to me, right? That's how I am wired. So typically, here's what I do now, and I'm not even saying that this is the perfect answer, but typically I choose to say nothing, because if I say anything, I feel like I'm just going to do I'm just going to say a lot of dumb stuff, right? And there's no way to take those words back once they're already spoken into the world. So I choose to say nothing. And then once I eventually calm down and kind of, like get myself together and everything else, then I'll come back and be like, hey, sorry, that was a dumb, like I did something dumb there, or like that was stupid or whatever else. That's typically like my my side of things. But I'll let Colleen share from her perspective what she likes to do from her side.
So are we talking about a disagreement between us and about us, or a disagreement about parenting, like a parenting topic?
I guess any of it. I mean, you guys gave me great bullet points, and it just says what to do when we disagree. So I guess it can be really, yes, all of the above.
I would say, I'm trying to think to generalize for either instance. I, like Eddie, can visibly tell I'm mad, right? He can see the change in expression, but I've been learning to just like take a step back, voice that I would like to talk about it. And I know, knowing my partner, knowing that Eddie needs that time to like simmer down, like give him time and then bring it up when it's a more appropriate time. And then we're usually always able to talk about it peacefully. But I think it's having an understanding of how your spouse, partner, whoever filters or works through things. So I'm learning, okay, like I know no matter what, I'm going to want to talk about this, even if you don't. So I'm going to give you time until you're ready to talk about it, because this is what is going to happen. And this is going to be what's going to solve it, instead of just like throwing it out and forgetting it. Because that does not work for us.
Right.
Because generally I will still hold on and be upset about something.
Right.
So,
and then the other piece of it is to make sure that you got when you disagree at something as a couple, you have to, I guess, understand that typically you're not fighting each other, right? Like, I think that's one of the things when you come back to like the topic in itself, like the bullet point that we shared, it's this idea of like, if there is a disagreement, the disagreement isn't putting me against Colleen, right? It should be me and Colleen united, fighting this problem, this issue that's on the other side of us, right? So now it helps us to kind of internalize, hey, it doesn't matter if I'm not trying to win with statements, right? I'm not trying to win the argument. Instead, I'm just trying to add value to the thought conversation so that we can overcome this obstacle or whatever that we're in disagreement on. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's okay to disagree. Like, it's okay to respect somebody's opinion, or respect somebody's belief or their thought in a situation, whatever it may be, but you don't have to agree with it, right? And we can, I mean, this topic can shrink or expand into multiple different layers, right?
Yeah.
But a disagreement that's as small as like, I don't know, like we talk all the time about like just let's say our bathroom, right? Because right now we have one bathroom for the four of us inside of our house, right? So like there's disagreements that we may have in the bathroom about like clothes that might get left on the floor, or like toothpaste that gets spit around the sink, right? Or whatever, like, just regular old bathroom stuff that happens all the time. But like, that really isn't the frustration with each other. It shouldn't be like, oh, you just do this, or you leave clothes on the floor, or you spit on the sink, or whatever else, right? And then that's the argument that's happening between the two of us. It's really like, the argument is really, I want a more cleanly space to use the bathroom, right? So how do we work together to accomplish that goal that's out here? It's not based off of what you did and I did. We want the end goal of like very comfortable and inviting space to clean ourselves, right? Or perform regular hygiene activities. So therefore, what can we do to accomplish that and tackle that as a couple, compared to saying like, I hate when you do this with your
Right.
clothes, or I hate when you do this
And
with
I
the
think
toothpaste.
obviously disagreements come with any relationship. Like, that's very
Right.
simple, basic statement. But, and from people coming from different households, whatever, people do stuff different ways. But I think something that we've had to work through is our personalities are completely different, and our personalities shape our thinking on everything, on every situation. So I think that's something that we've had to really work hard through, and it's understanding each other to kind of get through those disagreements.
And it's a good thing that, like, everything doesn't have to be an argument, right? Every disagreement doesn't have to be an argument. That's another thing to keep in mind. Like, something that is funny, because when we first started dating, and I still do it from time to time, but I'm more aware of it now than ever before. But when we first started dating, I had a bad habit of just like randomly leaving wrappers around the place. Like, if I open up, like if I took some vitamins, I just leave the package just sitting on the dining room table. Or if like like different snacks or something like that, I'll take out the wrapper and I'll just like leave it to the side or whatever it was. And but like Colleen never really argued with me about it, right? Like she just
cleaned it up.
She just cleaned it up, basically, right? But then like I think one time we had a conversation and she was like, well, yeah, one of my pet peeves, like, you really just leave wrappers all over the place. So now it's like consciously in my head when it happens, I'm like, oh, I should probably like move this wrapper, right? And I know that's a very small thing.
It's not. It's not.
I saw the face when you said that. I was like, oh yeah, she knows.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But
yeah. And you're right. It should be a conversation, not a confrontation, for the most part. I mean, there are some times I know that we've gotten heated, but like, do we need to get heated? And I'm the extroverted, loud one, right? Yeah. Sometimes I feel totally justified in getting heated or turning up my volume. Like, this is really important. I am very upset. I'm still not trying to have a confrontation. I still really am genuinely wanting a conversation, but I am letting you know where I'm coming from. And yeah. Tell me about fostering togetherness in the house. You have 2 toddlers.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that.
So that, I think, again, comes back to our faith, right? So like we strongly believe that, you know, when you grow up your kids in the faith, and you share with them the principles that we're learning and expressing and experiencing ourselves and walking out ourselves, I feel like it genuinely creates that togetherness by default, right? And then like in different situations, we communicate to our kids like we're a team, we're a unit, right? Everything that we do affects us as a whole team, right? Like, you know, we'll say stuff like now, like, thankfully Colleen is home from work. She doesn't have to work because of, you know, financial opportunities and things that's been great, given to us and blessed to us, right? But like, so we'll say stuff to our kids like, hey, daddy is working right now, and he's exercising one part of the team of like making sure that we have the things that we need in order for us to like do fun things, right? Because like for 2 and 3 year old, they're just thinking like, oh, we go to the beach, or oh, we go to like this. They don't really understand like life and all of its troubles and everything else, right? So we try to communicate these things, like, or even if Colleen has a meeting, or even times like this when we tell them like, hey, mommy and daddy has a meeting, right? So it's a part of your team right now. You have to take your nap. Like, you got to go to sleep. You can't be up just running around, roaming around, because then you're not safe, right? But it's communicating those things to them to foster that true sense of team. And for us, we played on teams our entire life. She played more sports than I did, right? And the fact that all the teams that we've been a part of, unity is the core of it. It's that unified piece of like, hey, we all have a common goal. And for sports, it was winning the championship. For us, it's to just love one another like Christ loved us, right? So that's a big portion of it. I'll let you add on.
I feel like for family-wide with our kids, that unity is like, that was a great description. I think for us, we could do a better job at, spending intentional time together, but there's a lot of stuff that we do to grow our business or grow different parts of our life together. So I think that I don't know, we're jumping to a different point that we gave you.
That's good.
But it establishes, like, with that common goal comes unity, right?
Yep.
Like if we're going 2 separate directions all the time, then that's hard for us. And we've been there to be united, but we can sense, we can take the temperature of our relationship without even talking to each other and know like, hey, we should probably just, after the kids go to bed, watch a movie together, chat, like hang out, and not talk about business, not talk about the kids, not talk about this or that, but just enjoy time together. But we don't, unity for us doesn't necessarily have to be from taking time, having a date night out. Like, even though that'd be great to do that more, for us is like, I'd say the biggest things are having a common goal that we're both in agreement, working together. And then, taking the temperature of our relationship within ourselves. Like, if I'm feeling like, hey, I don't feel like we're close right now, I feel like we're kind of drifting this week, the first 2 days of this week, like,
i.e. I need snuggles.
Yeah, because it doesn't need to, it can be a whole conversation, right? But I think because we know what we need, and we know what the other person needs, we can kind of internally take that temperature and communicate like, hey, let's do this or let's do that. So.
Okay, that talked about unity, and I think that kind of bridges into the daily commitment. Would you think? Do you think that's pretty connected? Let's go into that, because I'm guessing you're going to tell me the same thing. It's not like necessarily a conversation or set aside time, but you both kind of take the temperature of the relationship, and like the family relationship too. Like, people get sick, kids have temper tantrums, there's potty training, like there's all these things happening in the background, right? And you need to kind of take that daily temperature of the two of you, and then the family, and then and so I want you to just make sure that daily commitment is kind of part of that unity. And then I want to talk about calendar planning and the financial structure and your like joint goals and stuff like that. Ventures, goals, finances, and calendar. 'Cause those, I think, kind of tie together. So am I right about the daily commitment?
100%. The daily commitment part, Jen, is more so, it's very simple, and we can get through this because I know we don't want to monopolize all the time. But the daily commitment piece is honestly just a decision that we decided, like, every single day, we decide to choose each other. We decide to commit to one another. So in a very simplicity, like, we believe that, like, love is a choice, right? Like, obviously, you fall in love with somebody, which in my opinion is like an early infatuation, and then, like, over time that person reveals all of their, like, black heads and white heads and stuff like that, and you're like, oh, I don't know how much I love you now, right? But, like, what we've decided for ourselves is every single day, every single morning, I commit to you, right? I don't have eyes for anybody else. You don't have to worry about me leaving, escaping, running away, or there's nothing, right? There's nothing that you can do that's basically going to push me away. Like, we are in it for the long haul. So in simplicity, that's what daily commitment is. It's daily commitment to each other, because that creates stability, right? Stability in our relationship, but stability in our home, because now our kids know, like, no matter what, we will still be together, right? Like, life happens in all its different magnitudes and capacities, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what's going to happen. We've committed that we're still going to thug it out together, right? Like we still going to do this thing together. So that's the big side behind, like, daily commitment in itself. Do you want me to go ahead and dove right into? You have another question on that? I can
No. The joint ventures, goals, I think how you do that. This is all part of making that commitment and that unity and that daily commitment. But you're using a calendar, joint ventures, goals, and financial structure, and we can kind of wrap that up, and how that helps you guys with parenting.
100%. So, big thing for us is structure, right? And I'm more of I'm a planned structure guy. I'm not naturally organized. Like, I had to force myself to become organized. So when you think about, like, Colleen already hit this early on in the conversation, but prior to this year, basically, right, we work jobs where I would be going to go do my sales thing 8 hours a day, and then Colleen would be gone doing her teaching thing for 8 hours a day. And then our kids were with her parents
2 hours away.
2 hours away from us, right?
Monday to Friday.
Monday to Wednesday. Yeah, Monday to Wednesday. And then so it was a lot of moving pieces that was happening, right? So, like, when you look at the overall, like, calendar planning in itself, like I said, Colleen hit on this topic of, like, we didn't want to be moving in two different directions and then coming back and living leftovers together, right? Like, we wanted to spend the majority of our time together. Now, that wasn't something that we can do immediately, right? We couldn't just drop everything and be like, all right,
we're together forever.
We're together forever. Like, money still needs to be made, right? Responsibility still needs to be taken care of. So for us, the calendar planning piece was huge, because one, we found an opportunity that we could run with together, right? And we decided to basically land ourselves inside the network marketing space, and we identified a great distribution that's going to allow us to do those different things, and a training program that focuses on the leadership and mentorship side of things. So that's where we ended up as a couple. But that common goal of like, hey, we know we can't keep on going in two different directions at all times. We need to figure out what we can do together that over time is going to allow us to focus on that one thing. And we can get rid of you being a teacher, you being a salesperson, and we can focus on this thing together, and it becomes a part of us, a part of our life, a part of our everyday commitments, right? So with the calendar side of it, it's very important that we block everything, basically. So like, from a 9 to 5, for me, I still have a traditional sales job. So 9 to 5 is blocked out for work, right? But after 9 to 5, 5 to 7 is typically family time. So we're doing stuff with our kids where I'm 100% engaged. Phones go away. You're like, we're just engaged, spending time with the kids from 5 to 7. Well, typically 5 to 8, really, because it includes dinner and bath and all that other stuff too, right? So that's typically what's happening during those hours. And then from 8 o'clock on, typically, from 8:30-ish on, we typically have like meetings similar to this, right? We're doing podcasts, we're doing things together, like mentoring some other couples and people that we have like a financial vested interest inside of. We're doing these different pieces to grow our business and grow our dreams and goals together that we're unified on, compared to, Colleen just having to be a stay-at-home mom and be with the kids 8 hours a day, and me doing my sales thing for 8 hours a day.
80.
Yeah, exactly. Until I'm like 80 years old. Like we looked at it as like,
Right.
what can we do now that's going to, in the next 5 years, open up that time so that we have unlimited amount of time to spend with our kids, right? Unlimited amount of time to spend with each other, right? Especially as our kids get older. It's like, all right, well, you guys got school and all this other stuff, and it's going to be great when I don't actually have to do a 9 to 5. Like I'll be able to just, mentor some people maybe 2 or 3 hours a day, and then boom, I'm done. Like, what do you want to do, babe? Let's go to the beach. Exactly.
I love the calendar. I use the calendar, and I have told when I'm doing coaching, like, if you need to schedule sex, schedule sex. Like everything that you need to happen, that you want to happen, that's not happening, it's not a priority because you're not making it a priority. You need to use use your calendar. Do I know I go running with the exact same group at the exact same time every Saturday morning? Yeah, but it's on my calendar because it's a reminder to me that I'm important, and it's an accountability thing. And so I don't think people use their calendar enough, and it seems so sterile, right? To put date night on the calendar and then have rules to date night. It's not. It makes it brainless. It makes it. We're the same at date night. We do not talk about our relationship, and we talk about our kids as little as possible. Like that is it's off the table. So I mean, I always bring it back to a job description. When you go to a job and you apply, they tell you everything that they're going to do and everything that you're going to do and what the expectations are, what the time frame is, and then you reevaluate. And then we get into the most important relationship of our lives, our partner. Then we have even another most important thing, our kids, and we have no job description. There's no emotional prenup. We don't know what the other person wants or expects. So I love that, like being on the same page and setting goals and checking in daily and making those commitments and using I mean, my brain embraces that. But then it's not, then when there are surprises, it doesn't knock you over the head with a 2x4 as much. You can regroup a lot faster. So how good.
You got to create. I always tell people you got to create muscle memory, right?
Yeah.
Like if you can create, like, calendar planning creates muscle memory, because if you know what you're doing, and it's not to get into a rut, right? Because let's be honest, a lot of people, they get up, they go to work, they come home, they eat, they watch TV, they go to sleep, they get up, it's just a never-ending repeating cycle, right? That's not what I'm telling you to do with your calendar. What I'm telling you to do, what I'm telling you to do is put, like you said, times on the calendar that's important to you. It's important to your marriage, and make sure you carve out time to have those conversations, because otherwise they're just going to keep on floating and floating and floating. And then next thing you know, you're going to be, ticked off at each other and exactly, like extra angry. And then you're like, how the heck did we get here? It's like, well, we never actually made time for us. And because we never made time for us, We don't really have anything in common anymore. We have two completely different interests.
Yeah.
We pursue completely different things. We don't have any common ground other than,
Right.
maybe our kids. And that's not a fun place to be.
No. Are you guys, let's wrap this up. I need to ask because I
Mhm.
need to ask. Are there more kids in the future?
Yes.
Oh wow. Okay. That was like so easy.
Not yet.
Yes.
Just because boys being back to back, they were both C-sections, so there was some health
Yeah.
stuff that I had to take care of.
Mhm.
But probably the next few years, we're gonna space these ones out.
Yeah, when Sully turns 4, that's we're like, hey, we're gonna start trying again.
Yeah.
And if you want to pray with us, we're believing for twin girls.
And
if
then
we get
done.
twin girls, I think we'll be done.
I mean, I'll give it my best, but I don't have a lot of clout in that area. But yeah, that would be good. Just one and done. Get it done all at once, right?
Exactly.
Eddie and Colleen, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate you so much.
We appreciate
you.
you. Thank you for having us.